Meantime, G7 foreign ministers are meeting for a second day in Paris to discuss the Russia-Ukraine conflict amid deep division within the group over the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is at the talks, and he is expected to face pressure from America's allies to de-escalate the conflict in the Middle East. The war is having an impact on the global economy, with crude oil shortages threatening to drive up prices for consumers. Before the G7 talks, the EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas stressed that if the United States wanted to resolve the war with Iran, it had to deal with the threat from Russia, which she says is helping Iran to, quote, kill Americans.
We see that Russia is helping Iran with intelligence to target Americans, to kill Americans. And Russia is also supporting Iran now with the drones so that they can attack neighboring countries and also U.S. military bases. So these wars are very much interlinked. So if America wants the war in the Middle East to stop, Iran to stop attacking them, they should also put the pressure on Russia.
Let's bring in now DW correspondent Rosie Burchard, who has been following those G7 talks. And Rosie, America's allies were really looking for more clarity on what the U.S. strategy is in Iran. Did they get any closer to finding out?
Yeah, Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, came to this abbey in the French countryside, really trying to sell allies who are very sceptical of the U.S.-Israel war with Iran. Now, France's foreign minister was in a press conference and he was asked multiple times if he did have more clarity now from the United States about its war aims and its strategy overall. And he basically said, look, I'll leave you to look to the U.S. on that point. He wouldn't really be drawn. What we did hear was a message from Germany's foreign minister, who said he felt there was no difference or no disagreement with the United States on its Iran war between European allies and the United States. And they seemed to be kind of pretty confident about that. He said that there was no request from the US for any military action from Germany's side before hostilities end. And of course, that comes in quite stark contrast to what we heard going into these talks, which was President Trump absolutely slamming NATO nations for what he said was doing, quote, absolutely nothing.
You questioned also the EU foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas earlier, and she said that you can't deal with Iran without dealing with Russia. Did the G7 push that reasoning at the talks as well?
Certainly the European side were pushing that very strongly. That was kind of their pitch to the United States. And the context here is that there are real fears from the Europeans that with all this global attention on the Middle East, and there's so many civilians, of course, they're caught in the conflict, that support for Ukraine will simply be sidelined. And so one of the messages they were really trying to get across to the US was, look, if you want to weaken Iran, then you simply have to pressure Russia. And we know that the foreign policy chief really accused Russia concretely of helping Iran to, quote, kill Americans. Now, Russia denies sharing intelligence with Iran, but it has sent weapons. That's something it's spoken about in the past. And I think that the Europeans are really trying to stress what they see as a link between these two conflicts. And of course, this is a summit which was in many ways kind of a tale of two wars and two different sides, the US and the Europeans seeking give and take on those two conflicts, which are, of course, raging in different parts of the world.
We've seen a widening divide between the U.S. and its traditional allies under the Trump administration. Did the Secretary of State Marco Rubio make any efforts to heal that rift? Did you notice anything at this meeting?
I really did notice that this seemed to me like a kind of case of sort of playing happy families, particularly those comments from the German foreign minister saying there's no disagreement between the US and the European allies. And Marco Rubio did take some time to point out that Trump, he said, is pushing for a swift end to the war in Ukraine. That's, of course, catering, I think, to those very real European fears that Ukraine might be pushed into a bad deal and that the fighting across the Middle East could be to Russia's benefit in some way. So I think they've come out of this meeting, they've issued a joint statement. They are trying to show, I think, these G7 partners, this club of wealthy democracies, that they're on the same page. But make no mistake, those gulf in opinions between the US side and particularly those European allies on the ongoing war in Iran still really remains. These are countries which do not want to be dragged into this war and who remain, I think, it's pretty clear to say, quite sceptical of the US's objectives. What the Europeans are saying, and we heard this from Kaja Kallas, is she says there should be an exit to this war and not an escalation.
Rosie Burchard, thank you so much, Rosie.